Hello? Alright, cool. I think we are online. I think Overwatch might be a little loud, so but that's okay. I feel like I needed to. So how do I need to? So how do I? Alright, that's fine. Sorry for backgo. Basically, I'm gonna watch your body real fast and just kind of go over a couple things that I've noticed while watching it. For starts, your shield is effectively doing nothing here, so I would just retract it. I think you're forgetting it's a powerful tool to use, to help control space. Like, what is that shield doing? Not really anything. You always just put it in front of you and the Junker Queen. It's fine. Okay to have it out there, but see, like, not using it here, letting enemies kind of run up to you is not ideal. Now, kinetic grasping the brig is not an ideal choice. So what I want to talk about is I've already watched like the first 5 minutes of this, so we'll just go over it again for you here. Now, your issue, I think, so far, then one of the big things I'll mention is your use of resources. Your three resources, your shield, your rock, and your kinetic grasp, are basically how you perform that kind of poke style gameplay to fight enemies. Now, keeping your shield out in front of the echo is always a good idea. Like, having it open here to go forward and fight your enemies is good. Like, see, having it out here is fine, but you're currently not a threat. Like, you produce results here, but that's because the enemy's not looking for you. Like with your teammates are out in front of you, right? You see Mercy and Pharah in front of you there. Junkrat and Moira are off having their own fight while you fight this Junker Queen. Again, grasping really kind of for no reason. I've noticed that you keep rock on cooldown, which is not ideal. You're not using rock appropriately, i.e. if you use it every time it's on off cooldown, then you're limiting yourself to kind of not be forward progressive in your in your gameplay, because you are always putting, basically when all your abilities are on cooldown, you are at a disadvantage. Even like your aim is not great, but using abilities as soon as they're available is not good gameplay. Like, what would have if she did get that rampage off, that Junker Queen ult, what would have Kinetic Grass done there? Nothing. It would have not helped you in the slightest. So panic responding to situations by hitting your hitting your keyboard keys is not ideal. And while that was really cute, yeah, you were never gonna hit that rock. But look what you're doing right now. This is the other thing I wanted to talk about. Your team has this point. You do not need to stay on the point to continue capping. This does you no real benefit. You're giving them all this space to come forward and hold. So, like, before we dive into this next fight, let's just take a moment to see if I can free cam. So, for example, you were holding down here, like down in this like lower area, right? On the point. The point actually itself, while valuable when your team needs it, but if you have it, you want to use this time to make the other team fight for the area down there, and that area is not as valuable for protecting. Like, yeah, you want to keep them from capping point, and eventually you'll end up there again, but when you sit at the bottom, down here, you're giving this guy, for example, Soldier, a much better area to be less threatened by the Pharah, because now he can hold this area, he can quickly duck behind these two walls here, and he can shoot, he can control all this airspace and keep Pharah and Mercy out, which ironically, as you get into higher levels, Pharah won't maybe do that, but your issue here is that you were down here just holding this space, like around control point, and you let them have all this time to set up here to better assist their Junker Queen. So now she can contest on space, and the supports can not be pressured by your DPS because your DPS can't hold this space without you. So I suggest, especially on a map like this, once you capture the control point, you need to start thinking more about the what can I do to get into the, like, how can I keep the enemy from getting all this good space for free? The way the map is usually, especially in King of the Hill, is designed is that the team that is going to be attacking into the control point will be at a disadvantage up until a certain point, in which case the map will begin to favor them. Like, so say for example, the first part of the map, which is like near spawn, these have really long sight lines, pretty much generally nowhere to hide at all, because the point of this area of the map is for like minor fights to occur, like think low commit fights, as we like to call them. And then as you get here, like for example, and like we start pushing into like the middle between point, like there's a really good area, like the team that's defending point can hold up here, kind of figure out where the enemy's going, and then they can quickly run back to their team while diving down here and getting high ground. Obviously, so that makes it really hard to get to this area, but also at this area, it's like you can hold right here and you can have a good idea of where the enemy's going to be coming from. Like if you don't see them over in this area, you could be like, oh, they're going top, or, so then you can adjust appropriately to, make way for that. Also, there's a very valuable mega over here, which it can't be overstated, so holding this kind of like high ground as Sigma is much more potent than holding low ground, where the enemy is going to have high ground advantage coming into you. That's what I was trying to get at, is that now that once we get to this point, which is like right before the control point, there's now an equal level footing between the high ground that the defense might be holding, which is like this area, and this area here, and it gives the defense an opportunity to go this way. So usually fights want to occur up here because you need to control one of these megas, which eases the level of needs of your supports, so that like your DPS can go get a mega, and you can also deny a free mega to the enemy team. Whereas down here, you guys are now fighting at a disadvantage because your healers are now, there's no health packs over here. I don't even think there's a health pack over here. This is like a completely useless area. I always forget it's here, and it's like, why do they even include this? I don't even know. But there's no megas over here. There's no health packs other than this mini, which is like way off in the distance. And you're probably not in contesting point anymore at that point. So you need to think less about the individual objective and more about the entire map when you play. This is usually what bronze players do, is that they don't really know much else about the map other than like where the objective is, or like which direction the enemy is going to come from. But even then, consolidating this to this area puts you at a disadvantage. Like even though and additionally, there's one other thing about this fight I want to mention. You guys are 5, right? You have 5 players. They have 4. Fundamentally, you guys have the advantage, like resource advantage, because you have one more person than they do. So this is a good time to be aggressive, but you just assume that the enemy, another bad habit of bronze players is that they don't really know the strength of the enemy. They just assume that they're always at full strength, but that's not always the case. Junker Queen, for example, only has a couple abilities just like you, and as she goes through them, she has no choice to either back up and be with her team or fully commit, which makes, and when she hard commits, that's also what you punish. Your fair is a little scared of the soldier, but whatever. It's neither here nor there. You can't think about what the other players are doing. You want to focus on what you're doing. And this area here and holding this is not ideal. Let's continue. Also, if I pause, I apologize, but it could happen. Actually, I'll probably not watch this whole VOD, to be honest with you. I think I already see a couple main things you can work on. I think don't worry as much about your aim. Your aim's not terrible. Like, yeah, obviously you're missing some shots, and I also did at one point see you shoot at teammates, but that's okay. Aim comes with time. Like, you're only going to get better at aiming the more you play. So instead of worrying about if I'm going to land this shot or not. See this is what I'm talking about. This is, you guys are effectively doing nothing here. Your DPS are wanting to push forward to hold this other space from your enemy, and you guys are sitting back and just saying, no, they can have that. You want to be up there being more of a force, because now when you just wait for the other team to regroup and get all their, you know, nuts and bolts together, now they're going to just run in, and you've already spent, you know, your one resource that's going to help keep them down, and you're not helping your Pharah there who's trying to like do damage. Like, you're just not in the fight. But you don't really admittedly want to be that close to a Bastion either, but you want to not focus solely on the Junker Queen. She's not the only problem. She is a problem, but like Mercy got a free res, and this was going to your Rock. You know, saving Rock to block Mercy reses is a very valuable thing. Like, you can get so much done there. Anyway, you lose that point. Let's move on. No one goes this way. I wouldn't, or maybe, let's see. Well, you're going to rotate to this top area. That's okay, but meeting the enemy on low ground here is usually not the best. Don't let your DPS force you into this low ground position. You should take high ground. Continue to watch. You need to aim at other enemies, like not just the Junker Queen. To be fair, you know, this can usually work in some instances, and it's okay to keep the Junker Queen's attention if you can, because at least she's not shooting your supports. But what you're doing is also not very productive. Like, so you're in a situation where both you and the other tank, then this is bronze, but you're both being unproductive. So any tank that is being productive is going to do a lot better because you're not being productive. Your shield is still way back there, not helping you. There's literally zero reason to poke this without it. Like, pull that shield back. I see you just did, and you opened it up here. And yeah, you guys are gonna capitalize. You get a kill here, nice. That wasn't really worth the blizzard, but you know, like we said, that's your teammates. You can't control them. See, why are you now? You're holding correctly. Like, yes, hold up there. You should stay up there until you are pressured out. What are they gonna do? What are they gonna do against you? What you're doing right now is nothing. You want to be up there shooting at the enemy. Continue shooting, because if you're fighting the enemy, even if you're not committing and like trying to hold that space, you are keeping them out. But see how you keep letting them just kind of regroup for free, and now they're like, okay, we're all gonna go in together, and they bandwagon in, and here they come. They come under rally, which gives them more health. That was a good rock. See, and I think if you continue to hold your rocks for appropriate times like that, like, it's always okay to rock a Drunker Queen who's trying to hit you with the axe. You should do that. I think it's a good idea. But yeah, a little weird, but that's okay. All right, you guys win that fight, but you're going AFK again. Like, are you like talking to the dog or cat or something? Like, come on, like, you gotta stay committed here. Yes, I actually agree that this is okay. I mean, admittedly, you don't get a kill, but in the sense that, like, you know that those two people were by themselves, and you just need to win a fight, so getting an easy pick is good. Junker Queen, unfortunately, has the benefit of the shout. This is what's kind of what nullified that, but that's what, you know, you guys kind of started this fight on your own terms, which is good. But I want you to use more time to proactively think about the state of the game. And we call this game sense, and you've probably heard this term, but I think in those times when you're like not sure what you should be doing, you should ask yourself one of three questions. Am I denying the enemy free space? If I'm not, maybe I should look to see what area I can hold that would deter the enemy more from approaching. And that doesn't mean necessarily holding the control point, but that means maybe like holding some high ground, because Junker Queen, while somewhat powerful, is, you know, needs enemies to be somewhat close to her, whereas you're kind of a poke and you don't really need to be next to her either. Your team will eventually look to you to hold control point as you fight. Like on this one, you'll probably be spending a little more time there. But oh, you're going up against a Ram now. Now Ram is a little bit of a different matchup, and we'll see how you guys do. See, you're getting good damage in, but ooh, yeah. See, we'll go around the shield, so you have some sense there. The other two things I wanted to mention that you should think about is, what am I using my rock for? Like, basically in that downtime that we were just talking about as well, also take that time to think about what it would rock really be good against. Now, rock is a stun ability, one of the few remaining stun abilities in Overwatch. And stun abilities are great because they can interrupt channeled ults, and they can interrupt channeled abilities, and they can do a lot of damage, especially to squishies. So like the really popular combination is the rock and then left click whoever you rock. Now you do that so that way you can you know, like get a kill. But their team is now you're playing what's called poke. The enemy has shown that they're willing to try to learn brawl in this like 5th hour here, as they're kind of struggling this game. Switching to Reinhardt means that it's kind of like a more like, we're just going to go in and I'm just going to swing on the enemy. You cannot ignore the Reinhardt. You kind of have to always be considerate of him, and while keeping rock for him is a good idea, yeah, that's fine. But yeah, I would flex here, definitely. You also got the Mercy, so that's kind of valuable. Okay, so this fight's going to turn out okay. But so to what I was talking about earlier is like, what should I use rock for? You should use rock to interrupt resurrection. That's a really good ability to interrupt. If you do that, you get a ton of value. You have 2 abilities also that are really good at stopping shatter. If you're really big brain enough, you can use it to block a rock with rock, but almost always use your shield, because you can put your shield out before Ryan's shatter will reach you, assuming he's far enough. So that's the timing you kind of want to look for. Basically, I think you're trying too much to be preemptive, and I think you need to be more reactionary. Like, wait for something to happen to you, then respond. Like, even though you're going to go hold space and you're going to go fight the enemy, you need to, like, wait for the enemy to use an ability on you before you immediately use an ability. Like, you can use rock to stop Reinhardt from pinning, you can use it to stop resurrection, but if you always show your enemy that you're going to use it no matter what, even just only for damage, then you're going to end up in that situation like here, where it's like, oh, I can get my ability, like your enemies know they can get their abilities off because you don't have your interrupt. So you need to work more on keeping your rock for more important uses. This is okay poke, I guess, you know, like this is kind of the general idea, but yeah, you want to aim kind of as much at the enemy as possible. See, like, you have the right idea, reactionary rock here, but you're a little too late. You're maybe a little, I don't know why you're loose as committed here, but remember, we can't control our teammates. We can only control what we do. Like, rocking this frozen Reinhardt does nothing. He's going to have charge again. So now he's like, I can just charge whenever I please, and you can't stop me. So, you were kind of letting the flow of the game take over. Like, you're kind of despairing a little bit, it looks like. So let's go over the 3 things I was going to mention. So the first one was, what am I doing to help prevent the enemy from taking free space? And can I be, like, controlling better space in the area? Second is, what am I using my abilities for? Or what should I save them for? Like, yeah, you rocked that Junkrat, but you didn't really get the kill, and, you know, you don't really have a solution for the Reinhardt, and thank God he missed. Otherwise, our team would be dead. And, you know, it's like, oh, well, this was a really good flex. But do you see why it was a good flex? It's because the enemy is not doing, like, he wasted his shatter. They're all making mistakes, and that allows your mistakes to feel less like a mistake. So certainly not the ideal kind of like gameplay. I think you're just a little too preemptive about, see, yeah, kill this nerd. Absolutely kill this nerd. If I was you, I would spend some time in the practice range just before you start playing comp at the start of the day, not to work on aim, but work on the combo. I'll show you here in a second. I'm just gonna let this little fight play out. It's just so we can see how the rest of this goes. Yeah, like grass doesn't really do anything there, and against the coalescence, your best bet will always be. Wow, this May, what a blizzard. That was a good blizzard. But you're basically, you need to be more proactive about taking. Let's go to training here. I want to show you something. About not using your abilities this way. You want to be more like reactionary. You want to, and the combo. Let's see. Let's put a mercy up. I'll show you what I mean. So like rock, left click. You don't need to do any fancy movement. You don't need to do any crazy aiming. Rock, and then as soon as the rock it lets you, hold left mouse button. Rock, left click. Okay, like that. It is what is potent. So hit him with a rock and then left click. I mean, I let her fall to her death because I think that second one's not hitting. You admittedly also need the melee to have it be like the actual hit combo. So like, look. But I would melee there too, but since I can't, it's, you know, not as great. So, but this is, but that's what you want to work on. I see you not following up on your damage, like, because if an enemy's at least hurt just a little bit, your rock and left click will be pretty lethal. Also, your shield is good not just for you, but mainly for you. Is all, you know, you want to not try to, don't worry about your teammates. They're gonna have to use cover like good little boys and girls that, you know, to figure out how they can prevent themselves from taking damage. You should use your shield to help you control space. If you're getting a lot of impact from enemies, like a lot of people are shooting at you, you can put your shield up and you can control, you know, valuable space. Like, think about it like this. Imagine if there was a widow up in this door and your team needs to, you know, cross from this door over there or something, right? And you just put it right here. Like, you got to think about what now their widow's like, I can't shoot anyone going this way. Like, oh, that's useless. Like, it's like I'm useless. I need to switch positions, you know. But you obviously you're not going to be sitting here like, okay, little ducklings, you know, go on through. It's more like, you can help zone out a character who is a big threat to your team using your shield. But yeah, I would say work on your combo a little bit more and think about what rock is good for. What I recommend is when you're playing the game and you're like say, and you have that moment of downtime, hit your tab button, look at the scoreboard, look at what the enemy's running. So I see that they're running a Mercy, for example. And I say, okay, well, rock will be really good against Mercy because I can block the res, or I could use Flux for the res. You know, like I'll catch her and she won't be able to move in that time. So like it'll be really easy to get her. Or if it's like, oh, they have their own Sigma. Okay, well, I should save my rock for when they use Flux. Now, that situation obviously didn't come up, but if you ever end up in a mirror match against another Sigma, the rule is use every ability except the rock first. Like, basically, if the enemy, the Sigma who uses his rock first loses, is the way that goes. And what I mean by that is that rock, if your enemy Sigma uses grasp, you can rock them and you can deny them that ability, right? So like that is the paper covers rock situation. Like, oh, you use rock to block that ability, and then now can get your flex off if he used his rock already just to do damage. You don't really need to do damage in a Sigma, like in a Sigma mirror. Well, you're going to be doing damage with like left clicks, but don't try to use it all of your abilities just to try to kill the enemy. As for aiming, that just comes naturally with time. You're going to have to learn, but that's okay. Instead, use that time to properly position yourself. You should be very familiar with exactly how far your, like your Sigma bombs go, like before they explode. Having that is like key information, right? But yeah, I would say your number one thing to work on, if you needed to take anything from this, is your resource management. Stop using rock to try to just like counter everything, or like just to do damage. It's not really what it's for. It's good for securing damage, like if you need to like help secure a kill. Like it's like, oh, I saw that enemy was low and I can use that to help like finish him off, then yeah, worth it. But using it just to do, just like, oh, I'm going to start the fight with a rock is not as great because, like we were just saying, the one-hit combo is not there anymore. Additionally, with flex, remember your character becomes free to move however he pleases during it. So while I don't recommend getting too into the habit, like I recommend using it to change your angle if necessary. Like I think gaining high ground is always valuable with your ult. So like say your enemies are fighting here and it's like, obviously if they're inside that's different, but if they were outside, like over here, then using your flex and holding spacebar while you flex just to get up into a slightly better area, I think is good. Additionally, following up on like kind of being where you think the enemy's going to be when they fly up is good because then you can do additional damage. Because remember, Sigma's damage is half. So if, like it's 50% of the opponent's HP, max HP. So it's extremely valuable at like, like really pressuring a team. Like rather than so much trying to grab players, which, it's not bad for that either. It's much better at like in the middle of a team fight or kind of near the late part of the fight to like really clean up the mess. But if you can grab a bunch of people with it, it's also valuable because it'll help set up your teammates for success as well. And that's the other secret to tank, is that you don't need to necessarily do everything. You just need to do enough so that your team has like less to worry about. Like if you're getting kills on squishy heroes or you're keeping the tank occupied, those are both okay things. But if you can give your room DPS to grow and to produce results without feeling pressured, then you're holding good space. But what space is and all that, you're gonna have to watch an actual educational streamer if you really want to like get into the nitty gritty of game sense and space, because I've never been good at explaining it. But you usually want to save your abilities to react to other players. Not so much as preemptively, not so much to preemptively just get, like some sort of inherent value. Like doing the rock's damage is not, the best use of resources. But I say spend a little more time in here, get a little more familiar with hitting targets, and it doesn't have to be 10 hours a day. It doesn't have to be even like 5 minutes. You can just come in here while you're just waiting for the Q timer to finish and just practice landing shots. Now, the other rule of thumb, one last thing I'll mention for Sigma before I end this, is the range at which you fire just changes how you should aim. So if an enemy is really far away, you want to aim, in advance, right? So say this robot, I want to hit him. I got to aim a little bit in front of him to make those shots land, right? Because obviously my projectiles travel slower than he does. But if they're either heading in a straight line or if they're really close to you, you can just aim directly at them. Like this. Like I don't even have to predict. I can just aim at them. But usually more than 10 feet, I'm going to have to do a little bit of like prediction on where they're going. That's what you're looking for, like to work on improvement with your Sigma left click. Use it well, and it's easy to use, especially against distracted enemies or rocked enemies, but don't do the combo unless you already know that the enemies may be like taking some damage. Like say I hit that and I'm like, oh, I know I can do the combo now. Yeah, then do it. Don't waste it on a tank. It's not the rock's value is not in its damage, it's in its ability to interrupt what other players are doing. And once you get into the mindset of using that to interrupt players' plans and like throw them off guard, then you can start, you know, capitalizing on those mistakes. Okay, I think that's about enough to show. And if you have any questions, feel free to message me. I'm more than happy to answer them or try to explain better if I messed up. Sorry, I have a little bit of a ADD and I go off on side tangents, but yeah, I'd say in the middle of a team game, worry less about do the objective. If you have the objective captured, start thinking about how you can prolong the time you have the point. And that's not by just standing on point waiting for the enemy to come to you. It's instead holding space the enemy needs to take and spend resources to do so. Okay, I'm done. Have a good day.